Thank you. I'll call to order this meeting of the Bond Oversight Committee for May 23rd, 2024. President Hoy.
Stapleton.
Michelle.
That's me. Okay, now it's still.
Gotta turn your speakers off. Yeah.
It's my fault.
How about now? Nope. Click the thing far to the right on the soundbar.
Please.
Okay.
Every day.
We did welcome and call to order. Do we have any public comment? No. All right, we're on to action items. Chief, you're up.
Great. I just wanted to give you a quick, very brief update on where we're at with some of the apparatus that have come to town that are here in service, and some of the things we're going to be ordering here in the next couple of weeks. This is the new ARF truck, aircraft rescue firefighting apparatus, foam 6. It's in service. It's very I don't know, it looks like a spaceship compared to the other one. We have sold the oldest truck, I believe, which was in 1985, that was refurbed. When the first time we got airplane service back, we bought that one right before the last bond. So now we have two very functional apparatus. One that was from 2007, and then this one is a brand new one. So very, very functional. Should serve us well for quite a period of time. Next slide. And if anybody wants to go out and check it out, go for a ride, just let me know. We'll get you in it, and it's fun vehicle to ride in. This is a 2007 Wildland truck that we have 3 of these in town. We also ordered 2 large, we call heavy brush, which are a larger truck that carries this carries like 300 gallons of water. The new ones will carry 1,000 gallons of water. What we did with these was that's a Ford F550 chassis. We put bigger tires and wheels at different gearing on it. After our wildland fire a couple of years ago, we realized we couldn't get up off-road where we wanted to get off-road to get to the seat of the fire. And so we've We did retrofits on, so all three of our grass 1, 5, and 7 have been retrofit already. We'll do the re-gearing this winter for wildland season, but that makes it more capable off-road. And so this is a 2007 truck that we retrofit. I think it was about 15 to 18 grand a truck to retrofit them to that. Higher ground clearance, bigger tires, wheels, more capability. And so we're ready for wildland season, which is just around the corner. Next slide. We've received battalion chief vehicles. These vehicles, I think, were 10 or 12 years old. So we included them in the bond. These are all Ford Expedition Plus. They're the longer one, like the Suburban. That's what we had before. We retained some of the Suburbans in the fleet for extra things that we need. We know we're going back to the ambulance service, so we need some extra vehicles. So we're not rolling those out just yet. We figure out exactly what we're doing. But these, the other nice thing about these is all the ambulances we're buying, which isn't part of the report today, and all of the staff vehicles and brush vehicles are Fords, and our fleet folks are certified Ford warranty folks, and so all the warranty work can be done right here in the city, which is super convenient. And they're super excited because that's their specialty vehicle. They brought us Fords, so we've been able to accommodate that with all these purchases. We also have 4 other command vehicles that are unmarked that are Fords as well. I don't have any pictures of those. Next slide, please. Probably 6 or 7 years ago, we bought a side-by-side vehicle, which is a Polaris off-road vehicle for the express purposes of getting out into Minnow Brown and along the river in Wallace Marine when we have medical calls out there. This also comes equipped with a little small pump and a little bit of water for putting out a brush fire out in some of the areas where you can't even get one of those brush trucks or an ambulance. You can hook we can put the seats for 4 people. You can also put it in the backboard on the back if you have to transport somebody out of the brush. We are in need of an additional one of these in the West Salem. We have this one at Station 1. It covers the whole town. So this is another purchase that we're going to be making, a piece of equipment we're going to buy with some of the bond funds. So we'll have one on this side of the river and one on the other side of the river. And this one, we just exploded the transmission in the rear of it the other day. So we're going to have to get the transmission fixed. So it's mechanical like anything else. Had a transmission failure. So it's out of service right now, but we are in the process of getting ready to purchase another one of these. So we'll have 2 capabilities. The other thing that I want to say, is there another slide, Josh, or is this it?
I think that's might be it.
Yes, that's it.
That's it. The other thing I want to say is, as we're going through expending the bond dollars, we're being very frugal because we know that we still have to build 2 fire stations. And we have 14 million set aside for buying the property and building fire stations, and we're still zeroing in on property decisions that we'll bring back to executive session when we get that really nailed down. So we're really being mindful of what we spend. Our bond was covering apparatus and equipment. This falls into an equipment category, but any money that we save, we'll push that over to hopefully completing those 2 fire stations. Costs are going up, and the longer we delay building those stations, the more they're going to cost us to build. So we want to be mindful of that. The last thing that I included in your packet is the 4-minute drive time map. We had talked about that in the last meeting. So the first map is our existing current station locations. You can see Station 8 is actually out at the college, at the very top of your map. That really isn't city property. So those are the 4-minute drive times around each station location. And the way this is calculated is computer calculates this. It's 4-minute drive time at 30 miles an hour. We stop the stopwatch when we come to a stoplight, so it's a constant drive time. And this tells us about what our 4-minute drive time is around each facility. If you'll notice down at the bottom right-hand corner of the map, there's a great big area that we're going to locate Station 12. And so if you go to the next map, you can see Station 12 is covering most of that area. There's a little tiny sliver just outside of the trailer park there. It's really no man's land. There's no streets or roads in there. But this is a pretty good coverage. And if you look all the way to the top of the map where Station 8 is, you'll notice that a lot of the city that was not covered before up near Hale and those areas is now covered by Station 8. And the big open area there is not the city. So this is a better coverage of the city. Of course, we try to make sure there's no gaps in the core around things. And as we move out, we start seeing areas, the yellow areas are areas that are city of Salem proper that are not within a 4-minute travel time of the station. That doesn't mean they don't get responded to. It just means that the travel time is more than 4 minutes. So this gives you an idea of the proposed locations of Station 8 and 12 and how they better cover the city with response standards. And that's what I have to say, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Question for the chief?
Yeah, I have one.
Sure.
So when I'm looking at the new map idea, I mean, so it has to bond with 2 fire stations in the next 10 years. And we still have a plan to staff them, but I don't know when we're gonna have another bond to get more fire stations, correct?
Right.
So my question is, like, when I look at this, for instance, with Southwest Salem, would we ever consider moving one of the existing ones so that we could get better coverage for everybody? It looks like some of these areas closer in are really lots of layering happening.
And what I don't have on here for you, I think I know where you're going, is the concentration map.
Okay,
So we have a concentration of where the calls happen in the city, and in the core of the city is where the bulk of the calls happen.
Okay.
So you want that overlap there. I do have a map that has a 20 station deployment, and there's 2 more stations below 7 and 9. For way south, there's another station in West Salem. There's 3 more stations in Northeast. Just because of the concentration of the calls you're going to see as your population, get 40 or 60,000 more people, you're going to see concentrations go up. We're already seeing that with, the affordable housing and the apartment complexes that are being built. They're just popping up everywhere, and that's more density. And so, yes, we look at that, but I wouldn't move an existing station. The other thing I would tell you is if we don't have the funds to construct a station, but we have, this is a big, what is, we had the funds to add firefighters, we can double house too. We've got stations that are designed to hold 2 engine companies. We built them that way, so you could double house. So if you wanted to add a company, in the Northeast, you could do that at the new Station 8.
Yeah.
If you wanted to add a company at Station 10 on State Street, you could do that. 7 is another one, 11 is another one that are built to have more engines in them. They're all built for 2 engine companies. So we did that as well, and we will do that with the new Station 8 and the new Station 12. So you have the capability to add resources without actually adding a physical location. So, it just might depend on if when the next bond is, or, and here's the other thing, I'm just going to throw this out, we're getting back into the EMS business. 75% of what we do is fire departments EMS. So you might consider using some of those funds to build a facility if you had the money in the general fund to fund the staffing down the road. You might say, we're going to build a facility. It's going to be, you run ambulances out of it, you run fire trucks out of it. 75% of what you do is medical anyway. So there may be a funding mechanism there down the road to add facilities that you don't have right now.
thank you.
Yes, Councilman.
Thank you. I guess my question is on the bond funds for apparatus and equipment, how much has been spent and how much is left? And are we putting money aside for equipment and apparatus for the other 2 fire stations, or how are we doing
So
that?
when we purchase our apparatus, we plan, Station 8 already exists. So we already have the staffing for that. It's just relocating that station. So that we plan for that equipment, and we bought additional reserve apparatus. We base our lifespan on about 14 years. So we know we spread the mileage out on that apparatus. Last time we had 13 engines. We're gonna have 17 engines because our call volume has gone up and it continues to go up. So we're gonna have 17 engine companies that we're gonna spread that across. So we have the vehicle to put Station 12 into when we get the staffing for it. We have enough trucks to do that. And equipment wise, fire equipment goes up every day. It gets more expensive.
Sure.
So we know what we need to buy when we get the new trucks. So we're buying that equipment now. We're buying it and stockpiling it. Some of it's been put on the new, like the electric Hamatro tool and the electric fans we put on the ladder trucks. They're on the ladder trucks now. We took the gasoline motors off. We put all electric on those. Some of the other equipment, SCBAs, the self-contained breathing apparatus that we're buying, when those come in, we'll put those in service. We'll take the old ones out of service. So some of that equipment will transfer over to the new fleet when it gets here. So I know that we've paid for most of all the fleet already, 22 million. I'm just throwing some wags out here. We have not spent all of the equipment money yet. We're in the process of doing that. We still have the 14 million for the 2 stations and the land purchases that we haven't really spent any of that money yet. So we've spent maybe a little over half, 2/3 of our money already. Because of the lag time I mean, we ordered our trucks right away as soon as the bond passed. And we're not going to see them until spring or summer of 25. So there's a pretty good delay for those type of apparatus to get here.
Okay. I just assumed that, there was a portion set aside for the apparatus and equipment portion of it, kind of.
I can show you the spreadsheet. We budgeted everything out, all the numbers. We have a small contingency amount. Anything that's left over in contingency out of our 40 million will roll into what we need for stations. And if there's money left over when we're all done, then it goes back into the bond pot, and the bond, and this group decides how it gets spent.
The vast majority of the apparatus we prepaid in order to secure the delivery, and we got a significant discount. By doing that.
Saved about 1 point. I can't remember. 1.5.
Well over $1 million.
By pre-ordering.
And it was a very secure purchase. They're fully bonded. So if they didn't fit the order, we have that insured.
Any other questions for the chief?
Chief, so as the airport adds flights and services, will that have an impact, the volume of flights have an impact on what's required for the fire station at the airport?
So right now we have the equipment that we need, and we actually added some staffing, 3 positions that are they're airport certified firefighter response. And so they stay at the station. They don't respond with the engine. That's a 4-person engine now. All the rest of our engines are 3 people. This person stays at the airport. They monitor the radio. If there's a call, they go right out with the ARF truck. And if we have a plane emergency or a landing, that's an unscheduled landing or whatever, a full box goes to that. So it's 3 engines, a ladder, a battalion chief, a medic unit, and the ARF truck. The ARF truck goes first. The ARF truck really is designed to be operated by 1 person. It's all remote controlled, like a joystick in the middle. You can spray water foam, whatever you need to do, put the fire out. So they're there guaranteed 100% of the time when we have flights coming in, and we are adding flights. I think we're up to 7 flights. See, it just goes up every day. But if we added more, that person's there already anyway, so there shouldn't be any additional expense. And the ARF truck that we have with both of them would pretty much take care of any size plane that you would have.
It dawned on me after you started answering that it's probably driven more by how many active runnings you have.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I was going to actually make a statement. I'm on the airport advisory commission board. And at that last meeting that we had, John Pascal was explaining to us that we're one of the few airports that actually have an on-site fire station and the equipment necessary, which is now improving. More and more people are being interested in hangars there and more interested in the airport. And so I appreciate what Chief Netblock has done, and the extra crew, even though it's coming out of the general fund, is still important to have as we see our airport continuing to grow. So just wanted to be.
Anything else for the chief? I know we kind of skipped ahead on the agenda to the fire station, the agenda item. Is there anything else on that, chief?
We are still doing our due diligence with the property acquisition and some of the owners, but we're getting closer. And I think what we said at the last meeting here was once we got closer, we would schedule an executive session with a recommendation. I think we're getting close.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay, but don't feel obligated. We're on the management update, information items, project updates, transportation. Alan, you go, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. So a quick update on construction first. As folks know, the intersection at 22nd and McGilchrist has been closed since April. The contractor's been working on the concrete work there. So sidewalks, curb and gutter, and stormwater planters, they're getting close to finishing that work and moving on to base paving. And once that's done, they're on track to reopen the intersection on July 1st. So that means folks will be able to go to through the intersection at McGilchrist on 22nd or turn and head east. That area will be reopened. The closure will move to the west between 22nd and 19th Street where we've got a culvert to replace. And so that'll be so McGilchrist still won't go all the way through. That will be where the closure moves to, but the intersection will be back open.
Any major issues with the closure so far?
No. Yeah, it's on track and we've worked through a few issues with the contractor, but we're still on time and on budget. So full construction schedule will be completed late this fall.
Great.
The rest of the work, we've acquired all right of way for phases 2 and 3. So phase 2, just as a reminder, is the east part from 22nd to 25th. ODOT's bought off on our all of our right of way acquisitions, so we're ready to go on phase 2. The design on that is on 90% plans, and we're going to bid that job late this fall as well. So that will go right into construction next year. Phase 3, the big issue is the railroad crossing, and so there are still 3 acquisitions that we need to make there that we need to get a little further along in our discussions with the railroad and the design of what that crossing is going to look like before we can finalize those last 3 acquisitions. But that project is, or the phase 3 project is still in design and tracking for 26, 27 construction.
Is the railroad,
They're as difficult as always.
okay. That's what I was trying to figure out a way to say. I was going to spin it the other way. But yeah, thank you for your candor. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. We are on to local vendor report.
Yeah, and I have copies to send around here. And the only thing I really want to add here, this is just updated. We have our first contractor awards on here. So you can, along with the consultant awards. So the 2 biggest, or the two awards there for Minto Island parking lot and the 2024 pavement R&R. Yes, sir. And on the back, we still have the what we're tracking for Marion and Polk County versus everywhere else, and still overall, including those 2 contract awards, at almost 71% of what's been awarded to firms with an office in Marion.
Great.
I have a question on that.
Yeah, sure.
So in our last council meeting, we were talking about some transparency. Oh, what do we call them? Transparency agreements? I think that's what it was. For some of our work that we're doing in our URAs and with projects that are getting tax incentives. Yeah. And I was wondering if this wouldn't also be needed in this work that we're doing with the bond money.
Yeah, good question. So any project that the city does that's over, I can't remember if the limit's $50,000 or $75,000 now. We have prevailing wage requirements that we have to meet and compliance that we have to meet. And so what that means for a typical city project, including just a bond project, is we receive prevailing wage payroll certificates from the general contractor and all the first tier subs every month. And we do not pay them until we are sure that we have all of those. So that, and then that is on file in case there's ever a complaint or anything like that for wage issues. If it's federally funded, like McGilchrist, then there's additional things that we do, including going out and interviewing workers on the job site to make sure that the contractor's doing what they say they're doing. And that's also true for housing and urban development.
So there is no requirement on like a sub of a sub or a sub of a sub of a sub.
We're only required to get it from the first tiers. We often get from lower tier subcontractors as well, but they're not required to submit those.
That's where we're seeing the issues with the general construction kind of thing. It's not the contractor, not the subcontractor. It's 3 or 4 layers down. So that might be something we want to look at in terms of including that kind of language. It's not overly burdensome. It's just a matter of them disclosing who they're hiring.
Yeah, and I should look to see what, I don't know if Yeah, I'll look into it and see
Okay,
what requirements we're placing on those level twos.
that'd be great. Thank you. All right, anything else on the local vendor report? Okay, we already dealt with item 3, so we're on to Civic Center. Aaron?
Great. Got a couple slides. That's it. So we just wanted to, we got some guests here today that are gonna, well, one of them's gonna present on the project. So we'll start with that. We'll just say, so we got, Ricardo here. To my left, he's with Compass Solutions, and he is, tasked with being our, owner's rep on the project. We enjoyed his services on the police project as well as public works project, and so just would be an extreme asset to our team to get through this complex project.
And the library? When did you go to the
I was
library?
not in the library,
Oh, you weren't? I was thinking-
navigation center though.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then to his left is David Kellner with Hacker Architects. So he's part of the design team that's going to be designing these new improvements. They're going to look at the Civic Center to see how we can make it new and improved, I guess. But before he gets to his presentation, which is a lot cooler than mine, I wanted to give you guys just a brief update or a reminder on the project. Obviously, this is part of the bond improvements, about 39.5 million set aside for Civic, and it includes something retrofit, new roof, new windows, and Peace Plaza improvements. We've got a pretty aggressive schedule, and you've probably heard this information before, but just to get as a reminder, we've started design. We had a kickoff meeting with our design build team a few weeks ago. And so we're really getting into the programming, making sure that what was done as part of the pre-design report with CB2 is validated before we get into kind of detailed design. If all things go well, we're looking at construction starting July 2025, and that should last about 18 months, let's say. And then again, this slide just represents who we've got on our team. So Howard S. Wright is the contractor. They're actually the lead of the design build team, and then they're teamed up with Hacker and CB2, which is across the street. So next slide. So again, just as a reminder, we went through a fairly detailed pre-design report with CB2 to try to understand the goals of what we wanted to try to do with the $39.5 million. And so on the left there, resilient, safe, and sustainable. So that's kind of the tier 1 goal. We want to be able to achieve a safe space, especially in an earthquake, something that can stand those shakes, if you will. And then also make the building more sustainable, more energy efficient through that process. So things like windows and roof will help immensely in that regard. Stepping down from there, the second goal was to make the building more inviting, more accessible for the public. As you guys are familiar with the space, it can be daunting, it can be confusing. Wayfinding is difficult. So we want to be able to make the space more open to the public and people can feel safe. And then lastly, a modern workspace. So if you've walked around any of these floors at Civic, they're dated and they've been put together hodgepodge over the years. There's been minor little TI improvements here and there. And so having a consistent workspace, space that staff can be excited to come to work. And it's proven that if you're excited to come to work and you enjoy your workspace, you can be more efficient and be more helpful and be a better service. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to David and
Yeah, okay, great. So we are the architects that did the library and then also the operations building, which we're part of. I got to work on the library with Aaron, so we're back. And very happy to be back.
It's good to share your screen.
I will. Let's see. So there we go. It's my first time using Zoom, so just kidding. Seems like it's my first time using Zoom. Okay. Oh, I didn't see
good.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Let's see. Great. Okay, the one on the left's gonna lag a little bit because it's going up into outer space and then back
Back
down.
We're just gonna minimize it.
So, what I'm gonna share with you right now is what our team with Howard S. Wright brought to the interview. And so many people that were part of the interview process have already seen this. We also kind of came back and shared it with our steering committee. So for those of you that are new, this will be new. And we really started with, we're at the very beginning of this. We haven't really had, this was created before we've even gotten to talk to anybody at the city about the project. And so you're going to see, we really did this as a start to a conversation about what's possible with this project. And I say that because we have a set amount of money and a lot of aspiration. And so everything I'm going to show you here is not necessarily going to make it across the finish line. But this is just a bunch of ways that we could address those goals that Aaron just pointed out in the presentation. And we were pretty excited to get the conversation going. And part of that is because we did the library. And so we're really seeing this city hall as a way to complete the vision for the whole master plan, which was originally designed together, as you know, as one project. And we were really inspired actually by, and I'm actually looking at the left screen and I'm hoping that our folks on Zoom are able to see it. Great, okay. We were really actually inspired by some of the intention that we learned about historically for the design of this building that we're in right now, which was to be pretty revolutionary about how it connected to the people of Salem and made government a lot more accessible. Now, I think we have lived with this building for a while now, you have, and I think your understanding of what it takes to actually do that is maybe different than what the architecture ended up providing you. And so part of what we want to do with this bond is evolve the way that you're able to achieve what really was the original goal, and we think still is the original goal of making government really accessible and present for people. And so we're going to bring some really creative thinking that we're going to share with you right now about how you could do that. And we're going to start by saying we do have very limited resources for this. While it's a lot of money, it's also a really big building and has a lot of challenges. And so what we're doing is trying to think of ways strategically right from the get-go that we can find kind of win-win solutions where you harness something that you're already having to do, and like you have to put something back, put it back in a way that achieves your goals. So some of those things are that Aaron already pointed out as wayfinding. You know, everybody, you know, today when I came and parked in the garage, like you get out and you kind of don't know where you are. You're just kind of in the belly of the beast. And so thinking about what we can do for the general public to have a better kind of orientation when they arrive to make services more accessible, we have gotten to understand and are not surprised that the work that you did on the customer service center has been really well received. And we want to build on that idea, you know, that is accessible right at street
People
level.
find their way to it.
Yeah, right.
They're still in the belly of the beast. I'm
Yeah.
figuring.
Totally.
We are the wayfinders who tell them.
Right.
Everybody.
And there are some things that have changed about how this place is being used. Police have moved out, and so that has really changed the use of the parking garage and some of the functional requirements. So one idea we just brought to the table was the idea of actually thinking about how you could actually provide some parking at grade, where if you see where you want to go, you also know where you can park, and you could do that and then get out of your car and walk right to the place. You're not arriving down kind of in the caverns of the parking garage. And that might even give you the opportunity to start to think about maybe the parking garage gets like a gate on it and could be for staff only or something like that, or you could open it up on evenings when you have bigger council meetings or happening, something like that. But the public would come to realize that they could just use this kind of parking lot that is more accessible. Now, and we're saying that because without police here, maybe you could have one in and out rather than have to go out both ways, which was part of the police requirement for emergency response. It's handy too. I mean, it's so, you know, you would use that.
It's handy for people just to use it as a street.
That's what happens. It's usually
Exactly, and this would stop that from happening. We also were looking at opportunities where you could solve multiple problems by actually spending less money and saving money. Of all the things I'm going to show you, this is the one thing we knew right out of the gate would save money. And the idea was that what if we look at the council chamber, which has a lot of problems with it right now that were identified in pre-design, from safety and security for people that are coming and being part of council meetings. You guys probably know about all this, but like there's only one way in and out of there that can be really sketchy. So you'd have to pay money to like build a whole second exit. There are concerns about people being able to drive and park something underneath this. And have access to the parking garage underneath it. I won't go any further on that. There's ADA problems, like when people are, you can get here if you're in a wheelchair, but it is very circuitous and not universal. You have a very different experience if you're in a wheelchair than if you're somebody that's ambulatory. So trying to get that to be more equitable. And also we've just heard that even the way it functions for council, needing more support space, and get it to function better. So in the pre-design report, we actually identified an opportunity to give council a new home within the building. And where that goes, we don't know. We suggested maybe looking at this corner over here by the plaza, and that you could actually fit it in space you already have. The program report says that we actually have a little more space. Right now, we're vetting this right now, but it looks like we may have more space in this building than we actually, we may have a little bit of surplus space that would be enough to fit council into what we already have. And that would save you the money of having to do seismic retrofit and all those other improvements to the existing council chamber position.
Would you tear it down then?
Well, that's a great question. So, and I'll get to that in a moment. That's an excellent question. So, in a position like this, it would be more accessible to the elevators for people arriving from the parking garage. It would actually have arguably a more public presence. People in the library would be aware of that space. You could actually get more glass on it, in that position. So, if the plaza is supposed to be activated by putting council chamber on there, that would help promote that idea. And then we said, if you put council chambers in this part of the building, it could actually have direct support from city manager's office, the accounting, treasury, legal, like the things that, folks that are often interacting with it. And you could have bathrooms available to it and space for council to meet prior. So that space would just be better supported. And then this to your question about whether you tear it down, we actually saw it as an opportunity if you didn't, you don't have to use this anymore for all your program, that you could actually connect the work that everyone does here in the city to downtown. And you could actually remove that and the walkway and get a much stronger visual connection between everyone working in City Hall and the city that it serves, which was actually in the historic nomination literature write-up, was that is something that the building is supposed to do. And this would be a way to better serve that intent, actually. So, and if you were to take that away, you could actually think about replacing that actually with a park or with green outdoor space. Right now, there's a strong intent of getting nature to be part of Salem's identity, which the park does, but it's so removed and cut off by the parking garage. This would be an opportunity to bring that up and forward. And that could be a place for events and things like that would be more connected to the park. And you could actually create a civic scale front porch. This is a very grand, incredible public scale entrance facing downtown. Which brings to another idea that we floated, which was that you can invest in a single concept to achieve multiple goals. If you were to consider actually enclosing the atrium, what that could do, and what we're saying there is, instead of all that being outdoor space, which we know is a security issue right now that you have to deal with, that you could actually create a really clear, this could become a front door for City Hall. It could also have the side facing the plaza, so you can use both. But this is really, if people are arriving at the parking garage, you have to consider that, as a way that people are really arriving and what is seen people coming and going from downtown. And that would be a way to secure the whole building and also create a really clear point where people could, when you came in, you could actually have, if this were indoors, this could actually be a spot where you could have staff that, someone could be there, a front desk that could even be part of the customer service center that could actually come out into this atrium area. And from that spot, you could see courts, you could see the customer service center. Someone could direct you right up the stairs to where council is. And that could be a kind of consolidation of what the public needs to experience. And you can imagine having a front desk for planning, and that kind of thing up at the second level as well. So an idea about unifying the public experience and really taking what we know right now is a really a valuable space to your community, but is not used necessarily year round because it gets it's not a great place to be in the winter. And so actually think about how you could. Yeah, I know, right? Okay. And part of it, this was designed by the lead designer for this was from San Francisco. a California architect. And so you can kind of, California had a strong influence in Portland architecture of this era. And they kind of exported that and those sentiments. So you'll see a lot of the kind of things you have here, we see in other projects built during the 70s.
This is Salem, not California or Portland.
Exactly.
Make that clear.
Yeah. So good point. So anyway, this would be an opportunity to make this a 4-season space, and you could still make it really have like big doors and things like that. It could open up on days of nice weather, but people can use this year round if that were the case. But it's going to be expensive to do that. But you could actually save money because of the seismic. We have to replace all of the glass and window frames in this building, like we did at the library. They're very similar structurally that way. And so when you're going to replace that, that includes all these windows that are here along the walkways. Like that all has to get replaced because in an earthquake it'll twist and the glass will all break because the frames don't have enough space in them to hold the glass. And that's what we had to do over the library as well. So when you replace it, you can make a choice about what you replace it with. If you were to enclose that atrium, those no longer have to be thermally insulated walls. You can just replace them to provide some acoustic separation, say from what's happening in the atrium. So you can actually save money on what those walls need to be when we replace them. The skylight we know is a maintenance issue, just in terms of folks being able to get up there and work on it. And so it's also an energy issue if you were to enclose it. So what we're looking for is multiple ways that we could address both the maintenance by making it safer to maintain and seismically safe. And so structural has said we need to actually add some solid elements to the roof to get it to not twist as much when an earthquake happens. So one option would be to just make more flat, actually just roof area up there. So remove some skylights and make roof that people could walk around on. We put a person up there to show that idea. And then, but you could also think about replacing those skylights because they need to be replaced. They leak. They're kind of at the end of their life. And when we do, we can actually think about replacing them with, we call them roof monitors, but they actually use windows instead of skylights that are vertical. So they don't have the same kind of maintenance and leaking issues that skylights can have. And that can also create a much more energy efficient kind of situation. And those could support new solar panels. Those can be structured to support that. And we could actually, we will work with a mechanical engineer or our design build partners to figure out a really clever strategy for the atrium that would allow us in summer, in good weather, that you could actually open this up and use it as a natural ventilation. So you wouldn't have to have the kind of size of mechanical equipment that you would if you were trying to like air condition that entire space the same way. And we've done that on other projects. And if you do windows, you can actually control this that way. And then lastly, and really maybe most importantly, there are people that spend their whole day working here, right? And so how do we transform that experience for staff who are working in this space? And they have a huge barrier to collaboration right now. They have to it almost feels like you're having to leave one department, go outside to like you literally are to go to another department. And it creates this kind of sense of almost like territorialism or fiefdom, where it's harder to kind of share resources and be efficient that way. So one idea is to do more with what has to change. We know we have to highlight it in blue as the wall. All the windows have to be replaced, but I'm going to talk about this wall. We have to replace all the window and glass in this, all the frames and glass in this. So when we do, we have the opportunity to put it somewhere else. So you could actually put it on the outboard side of what are currently walkways and actually capture more space for staff that would be much more flexible. And actually make it so people can be closer to where the daylight is. If you go sit at one of these desks out here, the lights are always on because even though you're right next to the atrium, you're kind of tucked back 10 or 15 feet under a dark overhang. The best daylight is actually out on the walkway.
I think in your last presentation to us, you also mentioned that the railing surrounding
Yes.
the walkway needs to be replaced.
It's
as
not
well as
it's
windows.
too low for code, so we have to spend money on that to modify it to get it to be accommodated. So this is kind of a win-win where you also have to address that issue, and so this kind of addresses both simultaneously. We're also gonna, those are both ideas that we're gonna, we gotta find ways to save money on this, and that's part of the, one idea is to, think about not only how if you move that wall out, you could become more efficient, be more flexible with the space you have, but we also want to think about how we can listen to the building and what it wants to do. And it was designed with these kind of mechanical cores and everything. So we want to really protect those and not mess with how the basic distribution of the building is organized. So those we're wanting to find ways to maintain. And those are the bathrooms and ductwork and all that and infrastructure the building currently has. If we can save some of that, which we did on the library, it can save us a lot of money that we can spend on some of these bigger, more aspirational ideas. And then finding ways that we can create shared resources in how we plan the building so that departments aren't all isolated with their own individual conference rooms and things like that. But we can create shared kitchens and break rooms and break areas and give them good places in the building that invite collaboration and make those places where conference rooms are and also more informal places for people to gather and share ideas. And then actually listen and pay attention to the structure and what the building tells us what it wants to do and what it doesn't. And so if we listen to it, we can actually make interventions into the building in ways that are really more economical. So if the red is highlighting kind of how the columns work, they have these unique kind of capitals on top of them. If we use those as a guide to where we can create openings, we can strategically start to create openings between floor levels also, so that you don't feel like you're kind of like in a separate world if you're on the third floor than the second floor, to get everyone here to feel like they're all part of one place. And so that's the conclusion kind of through all of those, those are the ideas that we have brought to get the conversation going. And the real intent behind all of them, and this is a concept that we're really kind of advocating for, you're never going to invest this kind of money again in this building. And so while there can be little infusions of money here and there throughout the building's life, you've got to make sure that you make the really big changes that this building needs to be something that your community is like really going to appreciate and love having and work for you for another 50 years. You don't want to spend $40 million or 39.5 or whatever and just ensure that you have a building that you don't want to have for another 50 years, which can happen. Yeah, make sure it's a city hall that you love for the next 50 years. Any questions?
I have one. So we have a historical designation, right? on
Yes.
this? So does removing City Hall mess with that? I mean, how does that work?
Oh, the council chambers in particular?
Sorry, yes.
Yes. Excellent question, and it's a very timely one. We have a meeting this afternoon. We're going to be meeting with planning. We're not going to be able to meet with Kimberly, who is kind of our main representative for historic. We do know from some preliminary conversations with her focus of all the things we are kind of thinking about doing. One of her biggest ones that she's going to be focused on is how we're handling the council chambers. And there are going to be options there. And so we don't know if we're going to be able to get rid of it or not. We have to work through that with them. There is a path. There is always a path, regardless of the historic designation. There are ways that you can demolish it. You can do that. But the things that we've already learned, sometimes you need to, different municipalities will have different rules around it. There's a fund that you can pay into to help, that goes into preserving other historic properties that Kimberly made us aware of. We can look at alternatives to completely demolishing it. For example, you can still move council chambers in to get all that adjacency and not invest more money into trying to get that to work. You could actually, we were talking yesterday because this is brand news to us that they might have some resistance to it. It could become a kind of a porch or a patio overlooking the. You can take all the windows out of it, make it outdoor space. That could overlook the park or something like that. Our goal is to not spend money on it. So, and also you can see by removing it, you actually get a much stronger relationship between City Hall and downtown. So, there are definitely mitigating factors to consider. And then also, if you do still have to maintain public access to that, if that's the case, that has implications for maintaining the walkways and like where you'll put the walls in. So we're still really going to strongly push for being able to remove it, but we don't know how far that'll get. There's also some documentation stuff you can do. So if you really thoroughly, often when you're making an intervention to historic fabric this way that's required for the program, for the longevity of the building, you just have to follow some procedures for documenting it really well. Sometimes you have to do stuff on site that present and, that document that history and make it part of, this project, the kind of history of it. So those are things that we're going to explore. And I think the way we're going to be proceeding is kind of what we are aspirationally hoping to do, which is to remove it, but knowing that we have a backup plan that we can afford to do to maintain it, a piece of it.
Hey, David, you haven't looked at, or maybe you have looked at the modifications that would be necessary on the interior of the council chambers in order to, meet ADA standards and create a more modern and usable one level floor surface, putting in new restrooms that are ADA compliant and all the other things that we need to.
I would say in terms of looking at it, we looked at it in preparation for the interview. And we plan on, needing to do that as kind of a baseline to make sure that, I said early, this is the one piece that we know we could save money on, like right out of the gate. It's less expensive, we know, by almost $1 million to put council into the building we already have than to try to upgrade it and get it to work where it sits. And so I think, what you're asking is, whether we look in detail at that, we looked at it enough to throw dollars at it, a rough set of dollars at what it would take to get that to meet, to come up to operational. So that $1 million would have included all the seismic upgrades, adding a stair, adding some, building on a little pod in front of it to get some of the support spaces it needs, probably flattening the floor. And then, obviously upgrades to all the envelope that you have to do, the windows and all that stuff.
Probably not restrooms in that number.
Not restrooms in that number.
Would you have to do ADA restrooms?
No, they'd be part of, but you probably would be continuing to use the ones that are in the building, but it means that you have to now provide public access and path to that, that is accessible and usable, from the council chamber position, which you do now because all that circulation is outside. But as you think
But
about
people
addressing,
don't use those restrooms during council, they use the ones in the chambers. They're just not able to access.
yeah, I got you.
Probably do try.
I got you.
I'm curious about reactions to removal of the council chambers, from the oversight committee.
Yeah.
Do you have initial thoughts?
My initial thought, I mean, whatever we do, we have to make it better to where it's not, we have people falling so often in that space because it's just such a horrible design. In my mind, the best use would be to come up with council chambers that's more flexible use rather than everything so built in. So we can do, like when we have a revenue task force and we need to accommodate more people or different things, we actually have a space that accommodates that. So wherever we are, I guess I don't have such a reaction to the removal other than we just need a better space for sure. Although from a security standpoint, it's a nightmare. And then just at our last meeting, I happened to have a situation where for the first time, I did not feel safe. I felt very unsafe getting out of there and trying to get to
And getting back down to our.
and getting
cars.
back to our cars.
Really?
I felt extremely unsafe.
I felt unsafe for you. So,
I mean,
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
it was horrible.
Wow.
Officers there.
And I
But-
was in law enforcement for 30 years, so I wasn't like afraid, but it was a situation that was not good. And had it been any of my colleagues in the situation I was in, it would have been,
It could have easily escalated.
yeah.
The other thing that I observed with the revenue task force, we have a handicapped individual who's participating, and it is atrocious.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Watching them struggle to make their way into council chambers,
once they get there,
I've
they
seen
did-
so many people fall in 7 years in that chamber string. It's abhorrent. it's gotta go. It needs to be. And just from a council perspective, when you're sitting there with the audience
Breathe to your
right to your back, we've had council members
You're not sure.
threatened, people are all talking, even if they're whispering quietly, it's still right there in your ear. I mean, it's just, it's like a gladiator arena, and it's gotta go, no matter what.
Yeah.
Something's gotta change.
I think it's important to point out that our pre-bond estimate didn't address any of those issues. There were instructions were seismic and
Mhm.
required improvements. So David's approach here, I think, makes a lot of sense in that don't spend money on something, a budget that we probably don't have to begin with,
Yeah.
right? Or, whenever you're just kind of patching together an already substandard situation.
Right. I guess what bottom line for me is I'm fine with it being removed. I mean, I'm not, the council chambers don't have to be in that structure, in my mind.
Yeah, for me, council chambers has always felt like an afterthought to this building. Like, oh, shoot, we forgot, I almost swore. We forgot about this. Let's like slap it on the front, on these stilts. That's what it feels like now. And even for us trying to get to it through all the puddles and the rain and
You
it's
have to
just,
go in the rain no matter what.
yes.
They
So,
ran out of concrete.
It's so stupid.
They
The
do.
sign is like.
my only thing is that I'm sure you're thinking about this, there are some really cool things about that space that I would love to bring back into the building and into the space that council then takes up in here.
Yeah,
The doors.
Oh, okay. Oh, like, okay.
We like
The doors are awesome.
Yeah.
They're brand new.
Well,
Yeah.
are you talking about the historic ones?
Just,
No,
I
they were
like
just
the-
replaced.
No,
The
they're
doors
just
are brand new.
Yeah.
just-
They're like
they're
2
just
years
big-
old.
Okay,
3
maybe
years
I'm
old.
thinking about something else.
You're
then.
thinking of the wood doors.
You're thinking of the
Yes.
doors in the.
Yes, I am.
We still have those.
We still have them. They're in
And they,
storage.
and they could probably be utilized somewhere else.
Yeah, those are.
Inside, they could be utilized.
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah, the doors on chambers are brand new. They're like 3 years old.
And if the chambers were inside, you could use those in a way that
Right.
they wouldn't be subjected to the same
Cool.
kind of weather.
So just that kind of.
Just the
you know,
doors, you know.
Aaron's like, that's easy.
Once you can
Jack,
decide not
we
to.
can do that one.
So my comment is, I think that opening up that space would be a lot better. It would make it safer and certainly more inviting to come in. To historic, it might be that in that outdoor park area, before you even enter, you could have a plan to display what was here, similar to what you come up in the elevators, and then
Yeah,
recognition of why it needed to be moved so that it brought back to the original theory of being a
There's a
gateway.
story to tell.
And yeah, a story to tell, and that could be right within that public space that you're
Yes.
already creating and where it once
Yep.
was. And
Yep.
then you're honoring that. And I think that even opens up some opportunities where some potential art that we have in the archive could be brought out that could have been from that era. And so really upgrade the presentation of that open space as people are going in.
right on. And some of that art outdoor, is it able to be
I
outdoors?
think there might be some, but we could find out,
Okay,
because we have an art collection.
We do have an art collection, and there's a terrible thing that's under the Temecula Parkade that was once in the pond that is supposed to be some kind of a sea urchin thing, but the spikes injured people. And so it's moved. And
Liability.
that's the thing. Anyway, and so it's living under the parking garage in a very, very small corner, but there are pieces from that era
That we could introduce.
don't work well in some of the spaces we put them, but we could build around them
Yeah.
in a way that would be protected.
So if we could maybe bring out some of the historical art and have that in that public open space. I'm just saying, I'm just getting you ready for Kimberly or the group, like, could that be a possibility?
It's also true that this work will have a 0.5% for public art,
Yep.
so there could be something commissioned.
There
as
you
well
go.
for
And
that.
then we also have Peace Plaza.
yes.
And my hopes have been, since I've been on this committee, is to revitalize it. We don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money, but we do need to make it greener and more welcoming.
Totally.
And so, again, my hope was to be able to have something that went all the way from the pond, Mirror Pond, through the building,
Totally.
into that and over to the library.
Totally. Love that.
And so I feel that maybe some of that historic presentation could follow through.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like the idea of clearing the view and letting us all see more of the pond and
Mm.
downtown.
Mm-hmm.
No, I do too. I do too. Building, having that open space, but you can still maintain that architecture, you know, that blends in with the rest of it in a way.
And in terms of cost, I've always had a theory that that structure that the council chambers did you ever watch Men in Black?
No.
But, okay, so there are these hidden pods all over the United States.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah.
when you have to return to your planet, you find the button, and it takes, I think that's one of those. I've always thought
It's a
that.
spaceship
It's a
ready to go.
spaceship. There's actually a button under the mayor's desk, and I've never known what it was for. I think that's it. So I think
Might be a revenue maker, that building.
Yes, I think you just hit that button and you won't even have any
Could save us some
demo costs.
Yeah.
Right, it takes off.
But anyway, and because there is some art in the building itself, you know, so if we could figure out where that would go and mechanisms to be able to have that open space where it once was to represent it in some ways, I think we could maybe figure out a way to not lose the historic.
If Peace Plaza can get an upgrade, that'd be great, because I look at like the council chambers that you guys have in this idea and looking out over Peace Plaza as it is now, that would be really depressing.
Well, what I've been talking about too, others know, is making sure that the pathway coming up from under the commercial street up into Mere Pond and then through to Peace Plaza is like a one-way, you know, for strollers, for bicyclists, for anybody strolling. So those are all my hopes.
And when the library opened onto Peace Plaza, that
Exactly.
really made sense. So that we killed Peace Plaza when they moved the opening to the other side of the building.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, my hope is to make that feel all, again, a very movable space for those in wheelchairs or
Yep.
bicycles and
Yes.
everything else.
Yes. I also heard what you just said too, is that I've been curious if we have you today. When we're looking at Peace Plaza, I heard you say like something that's more green, right? That's our instinct too, but is that also, do you think that's gonna be more widely?
Yes.
The trade-off a little bit is like, you know, I'm sure the people that originally designed this thing were thinking this is just like a very giant flexible space that you don't have anything in, and it's just wide open for giant public gatherings.
Like the whole city can fit in there without.
Sort of.
Trees or, yeah.
And then they put a whole fountain in the middle of it.
That
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah. So I think, you know, when we do start, you know, bringing trees, I mean, into the space, for example, thinking of it as a place that becomes much more, maybe it loses a little bit of that just like big tarmac flexibility,
For sure.
but becomes more like a place you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go out there in the
Yeah.
summer, you want to talk about the hottest place in the city.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Go out into Peace Plaza on
Uh-huh.
Sunday.
You could,
The
it's
worst.
called Peace Plaza, but you could also put a spin on the word peace and make it a place like for restoration, you know, like so where you go and like be in the.
Oh,
be
yeah,
in the
yeah,
shade-
yeah,
shade
restoration
or the
plaza.
shadows
Yeah.
and kind of just
Yeah.
have a calming.
Regeneration.
Yeah.
You're
Versus.
turning into an architect.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at you, Mr. Warm and Fuzzy.
Something that I've been kind of hoping for is that we have some power out there so that maybe we could have light shows, you know, like at special events, we can, you know, like we light up the bridge, we can also find ways to use Peace Plaza to promote whatever organization that we're on, and, you know, gun violence or other similar things that we might have there. And I'm hoping that we can have some light show exhibits.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
That lights.
I love the idea of incorporating light into that.
Kind of like what the police station has in front of it with.
Kind of that, or in even more beyond. Sometimes they can even have light shows that go up against the building. And, but
Thank you. Yeah,
all
yeah.
kinds of thoughts.
Can I ask the question about where we're all going while this is happening?
We determine.
You can.
We're going to your house.
We're making progress.
We looked at alternatives, but we're still shopping. We haven't signed any contracts yet.
I really like the parking upgrade, especially for
Oh,
folks who are
okay.
just pulling and
Oh, yeah.
so straight to the customer service center. That's brilliant.
Okay.
I agree.
There is a downside to that, though, just to be aware of that because we have the one-way traffic on Liberty and Commercial. If we were to do that surface lot, then you could only access the City Hall from Liberty. Now,
That's fine.
and then, yeah, it'd
But,
just be something people had to get used to, otherwise. you know,
but we were speaking about having, a small parking lot from entering from commercial. I don't know if that's still within your plans, that would be near Peace Plaza.
Yes.
Right. Yep. I mean, I mean,
The
nothing's
one
out.
where the parking spots are already at.
Yeah, basically
By the
there, but
library,
maybe
yeah.
even a little bit more,
Add it more.
and have some of those be, ADA. We need that. I think there's one we looked at one that was ADA accessible that was coming in a little sooner, when you're heading
Okay.
north on, Liberty. And we would certainly want some EV chargers, or at least power so that we could put those in.
Yes.
I'll stop because I had a lot of ideas that I've already shared. I will continue when necessary.
We saw that parking plan in the work our partner CB2 did during pre-design. They were also I'm presenting this, but this was like the product of like a lot of people. Not just Hacker, it's just our partner CB2 and our contractor too. So CB2, they've also looked at, they were the ones that kind of brought that idea. And then they were also kind of our partners in thinking about other places like that other corner.
David, what do you anticipate the process being from here to 100% plans? And maybe we're at 10% right now. But what do you anticipate the process being as far as going through the design process and arriving at a preferred design and vetting that with public and council? What does that look like?
Ricardo, do you want to address that from a bigger timeline kind of point of view?
I mean, yeah, so, I mean, architecturally, they'll go, I'd say that they're at less than 10% right now.
Yeah.
And so,
Big difference.
yeah, so, they're still filling out the rest of their team right now. So that's like the immediate next step is mechanical, electrical, plumbing, which impacts a lot of the decision-making that we're looking at here. We need to be able to, and civil, need to be able to incorporate all of that expertise into the big picture and into the various different cost ideas. And then really what the design team is focusing on first is, really rolling up the sleeves and trying to determine, these big picture decisions, because once we kind of say yes to them, we have to vet it out the cost and make sure that we can afford them. If you say no to one, you really can't come back and visit it later on. The train has moved through the station,
Yeah.
So, but overall timeline wise, it's basically, from here until there's a little bit of an overlap once we get into the spring of 2025, as far as design continuing while we're beginning to think about construction continuing. But roughly it's about an 8-month, I think, overall duration, 9-month overall duration from start to finish on the design process. And that's broken up into schematic design, kind of milestone, design development milestone, and then ultimately working on the construction documents, which I don't remember the exact timeline, but I think that's starting up basically January or so of 25
For construction documents.
for construction documents.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty aggressive. Yeah.
So at some point in there, we'll need to have some public access and discussion about this is what we're doing. I don't want people to wake up, hey, why are they tearing down council
yeah.
chambers?
Yeah.
Totally.
Good
And
point.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
public members with strong opinions about Peace Plaza. I went all down with it, so I think it's important to do that.
David, during the selection interviews, we were presented with a lot of different options to address the real big issue, the seismic. Have you settled, or has a solution to the seismic been settled on?
At a big picture scale, we're focusing on one strategy right now, right out of the gate, that we think will be the least expensive strategy and free up, money for the other things like what I was just showing. As we did in the library, we made really like early decisions that were like, let's make the cheapest decision with the things that people aren't really gonna feel
See?
is. Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, it's a safe building. So right now, in terms of seismic solutions, we are trying to look at the scheme that adds some concrete walls to the outside of the building, like we did on the library. So when you go over there and you see those kind of black concrete walls that have the vines growing up them, that we're gonna need a few of those on this building. That's that one component of it. I think we are looking at retaining the structure out here in the courtyard, the roof structure. So the big concrete, the giant concrete beams and the big columns out here. We're not really looking right now at taking all that out or anything. Because what was needed to kind of tie that in wasn't seeming too over the top. It's not like that's the thing isn't like the biggest. Does that answer your question?
It does, and then the other thing, and forgive me if I'm confusing your presentation with someone else's, but
Sure.
my recollection was that some of those choices in how you address the seismic impacted sort of how you organize the space inside for efficiency. So that's why I was asking that question. So the shear wall seems to like give you the most flexibility in terms of what you're doing inside the building for
Exactly.
staff and how it's set.
Exactly. Yep. That's why we did it in the library too.
Okay.
Especially being shifted to the outside.
Yeah.
They're easier to build also because you're not having up down under the building and digging holes to put in new footings and things.
That was another presentation, but I have a feeling that, I mean, I wasn't involved in the library, but I have a feeling that we're gaining some of the value and some of the knowledge gained that already existed that this team went through on the library project, but they probably evaluated some of those same things on the library project.
I like the idea of the continuity, visual continuity
Uh-huh.
between here and the library because it is seen as one space.
Totally. Yeah.
One question I have, though it's probably very low on the list, with all the glass that you're recommending in the entryway and improving that courtyard space, what type of materials or what can you do so that we don't have a lot of birds crashing into the glass
Oh yeah.
wall?
No, that's a really that's a great question, and there's been a lot of progress in terms of research into that. There's now all kinds of bird safe glass that you can utilize that has like printed patterns on them
Right,
that are
that they
visible
can see and
that the birds
might
can
not
see that
recognize it.
reduces that. Now, one of the big things that causes that is when birds see through a building.
Right.
And this is a little more complex. Like it might help us actually like reduce some of the risk, just because while you can see through the building.
They see more in like it's a building.
Yeah, right. It's going to be.
I know that might cost more. I'm just saying it would be something. That
Absolutely. No, it's really important. Yep.
Yeah, I don't want us to be known as like the bird.
The bird,
No.
killing, the bird killing building.
Yeah, no, for
4
sure.
or 5 a year hit my window in salmon run, so.
Yeah, it is
Usually
amazing.
scared me.
10 or 12
appreciate
crap on my car.
So you're all.
The pigeons love the parking garage.
Those are
It
special.
only kills pigeons.
No.
Anyway,
Anything
it's
else
just
on
something to
this?
think
Thank you.
Anything else you need?
I
to
think
us?
the only thing, just while we have, when you saw this, if you were to prioritize it and pick your top thing that you saw out of everything I presented, because as we're making decisions, it would just be interesting to know from each of you if there was one thing you saw that you got really excited about out of what we just presented. Or anything that stood out as what we should prioritize for you.
I will say, well, I don't know, but I think moving council chambers is really important because of all of the reasons why we've listed it, but it is painful to watch folks who are trying to navigate that council chambers and not be able to.
Okay.
As well as the safety concerns that counselors have being in that very exposed.
And that can be moving, not necessarily removing. Like it's just moving it to a different location. It's not necessarily about removing the concrete pod.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing.
That's the priority.
Yeah, the priority would be to relocate. And if we can remove the chambers, great, but if we can't, because of historical reasons, then we repurpose it.
Back up, it's going up. Okay.
It's gonna go.
Okay.
I don't know, that was
same
me,
for you.
somebody else.
Yeah, I mean,
Hard to say.
it's hard to pick a top priority. I mean, of course, the top priority has to be the seismic retrofit because that's the whole purpose here. And creating a safe space for the staff and public. Council chambers is a high priority for me, but I like the idea of, I really like the idea of making an enclosed front with kind of a more of a grand entrance, kind of a civic center feel as opposed to
Where
big
are
piles
we?
of concrete and where the
Yeah,
hell
right
am I
on.
and how do I get,
The
I can
fortress.
see where I want to go, but I don't know how to get there.
Right.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, just that inviting opening and bringing, I mean, all the outdoor spaces and then also bringing the outdoors indoors, but with a functional, bright indoors that's really inviting. I mean, I just like that whole kind of view. Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you.
And the solar panels.
Yeah, so
Of course.
since day one, it's been more about access, understanding, so wayfinding, access, and having it not only structurally more sound, but really a more welcoming building.
Yeah.
So those are my priorities. I really do want to connect the whole space.
Yep. He's positive part.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Anything under item 5, Alan? Continued business?
No.
Nothing that, and all right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.